Hey everyone, it's Mike over at Angry Jellyfish Games, and today I just want to record a short video about the upcoming set rotation we're going to see in March, and some cards that are going out, some cards that are coming in, how I think that's going to affect the format overall. This is the second rotation in Universus that I will have experienced. The first one was fairly small, just one set rotated out. It was a pretty impactful set, so a lot of things happened. This time around, I think it's really going to shake up the format. So let's get into it. So, rotation. Coming March with the release of Critical Role Heroes of Exandria, the standard format will rotate out Crimson Rampage and Heroes Clash. If you don't know what that means, the cards with those two set symbols up there, the red UA symbol and then the punch, they will no longer be allowed in your standard deck. And that's going to change some stuff. So when a rotation happens, really there are three steps to that. First, there's cards that leave the format, cards that enter the format, and then also there are some cards that are in the in-between period, the sets that were already in standard that aren't rotating, where you have to go in again and kind of reevaluate some of those cards, see if their power level has changed in the new relative area of the format. So first, let's go through some categories of cards leaving. So first, archetype linchpins are going out, quite a few of them. New training method is a huge loss for every deck on those three symbols, Earth, Good, and Life. We see it most prominently in the Ymir deck right now, as well as Earth Pony builds. This card lets you be really greedy with your early builds, which again lets you be really greedy with the difficulty curve in some of your decks. By cheating in the extra foundation regardless of difficulty. It acts as potential card draw in the mid-game. It's just really versatile, well worth the forecheck. That's a card that I'm personally going to miss a lot. Any Means Necessary is coming out of the Pony Tsunotori deck. It allowed that deck on the Earth symbol to have up to 12 cards that when you discarded them, they redrew. So her enhance of discarding 2 to draw 1 was very often a draw 2 or a draw 3. It let her get really aggressive with those horn counters and just have so many resources through the course of the game. So losing that isn't necessarily going to kill the pony deck, but is going to make it so that Earth isn't, in my opinion at least, the best symbol for her. Sports Festival Champion won a regional this year in Travis Tangeman's Elder Toguro deck. He would put a ton of damage on a move, say that the damage couldn't be reduced with Sports Festival, swap the speed and damage so they just became the same value, and throw one giant attack at you. That is kind of a meme deck that people are speculating about now that Twisting has been banned. People are looking at Dupler's Elder Toguro with Sports Festival to really stack up a very large damage number and do that swap. That archetype is going to leave the format with rotation. Award the Victor sees a little bit of play right now, I think really just in Bertolt 1. Bert 1 gets to hit with an attack, stack it on top with Award the Victor, and then because he has a form speed card draw ability on his face, he always gets to pick up that attack he just hit with, and then almost guaranteed pass the check with the +2 from Award the Victor. It was letting him throw a lot of attacks on 0 progressive between that and his response to send the first one he blocked to momentum. It really put that deck back on the map. I think it might knock the deck out of contention once that rotates out. We'll have to see the rest of the card pool, but definitely going to weaken that deck. And then Focus Attack. This is again, archetype defining card. There were a few decks that put together the all mid package with Focused Attack as a finisher. All Rodan was the most notable one this standard season. Made a lot of top cuts at some regionals, really using those mid attacks with Focus Attack as a very powerful finisher, base 6 speed, huge damage output, a big deadlock threat. That's going to leave the format. And that'll take us to our next category. These are more minor losses. These are cards that you'll see every once in a while. So Seizing the Advantage, again, was in the Pony Tsunotori deck on Earth pretty often. That first form to be an extra build, give that extra speed, flip that interactive piece. It had a cool combination with Lethal Slash, where You could lead with this, then go into Lethal Slash, which only needed to be the second card played to get its removing response on itself. So it didn't care that your first card wasn't an attack. You'd get to go Seizing, Lethal Slash, and be done with that first attack with a clear card pool. Grenadier Bracers saw a little bit of French play in Hanji 2, who was destroying her own stage so much that Grenadier Bracers was giving a ton of damage on those attack strings. Ultra Compressed Weights and Training Weights have both seen play in Mimic decks at times. I don't think that Mimic is going anywhere with rotation, but it is losing both of these tools. It has enough playable assets at this point that it doesn't necessarily need either of these. I know the last Mimic deck I saw was on Ultra Compressed but not Training Weights. I've seen Mimic decks with Training but not Ultra Compressed, and decks with neither. So just some tech pieces the deck is losing access to. Stun Grenade was mostly just seen in the Bakugo 4 deck on Death and Air. Really powerful flow card for that strategy. Just the Fury keyword lock deck already. It's going to draw an attack a ton of the time. Bakugo is already clearing his card pool, so you're getting at least a stun 2 off of this. It was a very powerful card. It's going to knock down Bakugo's capabilities a little bit. And then Battle Arena, again, we see this in Chaos Mimic, but we also see it typically as a 1-2 of in Godzilla. Godzilla gets to abuse it because he can wipe the board with his first form, but it doesn't destroy the Battle Arena. So you do that, and then you Battle Arena to ensure that that first attack is going to come through when your opponent is on no foundations. I don't think it was necessary for the deck, but it was just a cool thing that they got to do. It's not going to knock Godzilla out of the format. It's just going to be that little bit weaker there. All right, we're also losing 2 really powerful cards in Chivalrous Competitor and Struggling with Studies. What these cards did was protected other foundations from targeted flip effects from your rivals by saying, no, you don't flip that thing that I really care about, you're going to flip this instead. But because they had very useful other enhance abilities, you got to play them on these symbols all the time and just have this incidental protection against flip effects, but not be embarrassed about having this card that wasn't doing anything else. The Chivalrous Competitor Flip to Draw was great. Struggling with the defense picking up a block or picking up a referee jury, which we saw a lot recently. Really powerful effects with this incidental hate against targeted flip. With both of these leaving the format at the same time, you can look at your other options for those protective effects, and most of them don't come with other utility. So you have to kind of relegate them to sideboard slots if you're going to play them at all. And as a result, I think that targeted flip is going to be more powerful in general because you're not going to see that many incidental hate pieces for it in your rivals' decks. So things like Dragon Strike are going to go up in value with the rotation because these are leaving. 0 difficulty foundations. When the first My Hero set rotated, we lost a lot of the best 0 difficulty foundations that were in the format at the time. We're going to see that again with this rotation. The design team at UVS Games has very clearly started moving away from high power 0 diffs all the way to in Attack on Titan. There's a whole cycle of 0 difficulty foundations that just have no text on them. We can look at these. We look at Basic Training, Surviving the Final, Easily Excited. These are all giving you 1 additional resource throughout the turn cycle. Quick to Act and Floating were giving you a conditional +1 stat on every attack if you could meet that condition. And then Internship was a little more niche in what was playing it, but that free making your rival flip a foundation was very powerful, especially in like Byakuo. These are all leaving the format. The remaining 0 diff foundations aren't nearly as powerful as the ones that are leaving. So in a sense, some of those newer 0 diffs are going to become more playable just because you don't have these better options anymore. But also characters like 7-handers who were using powerful 0 diffs to really have consistent, strong builds in those first turns aren't going to have that same power output from their foundations. So you're going to get a minor hit here. Unless, of course, Critical Role shows up with a lot of more powerful 0 diffs so we can kind of move back towards this direction, but I don't really anticipate that. We are losing a lot of notable sideboard cards with this rotation. Learning the standards, we saw really throughout its whole run. Cheerful Uppercup has come back into vogue recently. So Manly, you'll see every once in a while in a sideboard. We also saw main deck in the Recovery Girl deck that took down Webcam Warriors. These are all hate pieces for string decks. So you say, hey, I'm going to take this one attack, or I'll block this one attack with Cheerful, stuff your card pool, make it really difficult for you to play all these attacks in a row, disrupt your game plan like that, turn off combo requirements, that sort of thing. We're also losing Forcing Surrender, which was kind of the counterplay to a lot of these card pool stuffing effects. When I was playing Pony in Atlanta, I had Forcing Surrender in my sideboard, anticipating things like Learning the Standards and Cheerful, so that if my rival stuffed my card pool, I would have Forcing in play to immediately clear that back out, kind of reset to the flow state I want it to be in. So we're losing some of that interactive play there. We're going to have to look at other sideboard pieces in more recent sets that hate on those long string aggressive decks, or if there aren't anything quite as efficient in that style of hate, then those string decks are going to become a little more powerful because the hate pieces just aren't going to be there for them. We're also losing Evade and Copy. This was a really unique effect in the format. This passive text on the block, where when you block with this, you return the speed and zone of the attack to printed. This was really, really good against the Deku on the move deck that just came out. The kind of Deku one-shot deck where they would put a ton of stats on a Fajin Flurry or on a attack with Flash or something like that. Evade and Copy isn't a response on the block, it's just this passive text, so it can't be canceled and it can't be sealed, which is just this kind of uninteractable interaction for those style of decks. Since we're losing this, those decks, while they aren't amazing right now, they are kind of competitive. Being able to ignore this potential hate piece out of the sideboards could potentially be a big deal for that style. We're losing a few more fringe cards. Excited for Blood, in its heyday, was one of the best cards in the format. I'm actually currently planning to play a playset of Excited for Bloods in my deck at Nationals. I think it's still quite good. We're going to be losing access to that. Spooky, a very unique defensive effect, especially when combined with something like Barrier Shield to zero out the speed of something and then swap it so that the damage is zero, or even just negate someone spending a ton of momentum on a powerful effect, something like that. Didn't see a ton of play, but when it was there, it was definitely felt. And then Petty Squabble, which again doesn't see a ton of play nowadays. It's just a very unique effect, very cool. There are a few characters who can ready themselves, and when you pair that with Petty Squabble, you can do some pretty silly things. None of them have been competitive that recently, but it's just something that we lose access to that I wanted to highlight. And then notable characters that we're losing. Recovery Girl can get right out of here. This character is not really healthy for the game, as was demonstrated last weekend. This character just pretty easily puts up a defense that is so difficult to interact with and just stalls out the game forever. Mineta is a similar version of that super defensive plan, not quite to the same extreme as Recovery Girl, where Mineta's a little bit better at closing out games, but also doesn't quite get to the really lockdown defense levels. Mineta was one of my favorite characters to play. I've played him at multiple regionals, multiple webcam events. Honestly, if round timers were 90 minutes instead of 60, I would be bringing Mineta to Nationals. I do think he is that good. You just can't get past the round timer sometimes. It takes too long to turn the corner when you're ahead and actually close out a game. And if you're ever against a slower playing opponent, you're just going to go to time. There's not much you can do about it. Both of those leaving the format. Hopefully we don't see any five-handers quite in this style in the future. I like to think that UVS has kind of learned the lesson on these. So yeah, one of these will not be missed. One of them, a little bit. It is important to note there are a few cards in these sets that aren't rotating. So these 8 reprints in Girl Power are all from sets 2 and 3. They're still going to be in Standard, so you don't have to worry about that. You can play your old copies, that's fine. And then League Interview and High Value Target both had promo reprints with the League of Villains symbol on them, and as a result, they're both sticking around. League Interview, we saw some play from Smiling Titan. I think Godzilla players occasionally play this card, although I don't see it too often. But yeah, that one's sticking around. It's playable. High Value Target, I've played quite a bit. I think it's decent right now because it lets you save a foundation from a board wipe from either Burt 2 or Godzilla, which is just a nice little utility to have on top of committing for 2 foundations on a block. I think that card is a little underplayed at the moment, but it's sticking around, so we'll still have access to it. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, and now for what is coming into the format. So, Critical Role, Heroes of Exandria. At the time of recording, we've seen these 6 cards, and that's it. So there's not a ton we can see about what's coming with the new set so far. Some of these cards are relatively powerful. Treasure Hunting, the form speed drawing a card, is very, very good. That's an effect that we don't see too often. That has been getting better with time. We know that there are going to be 9 symbols in the set. That was revealed about 2 hours before I recorded this video. Right now I know 6 of them. It's Water, Earth, Death, Void, Life, Chaos. So the symbols that are in the set are going to get more powerful. The symbols that aren't in the set are not going to get more powerful, and as a result get weaker in the grand scheme of things. Once we know what those other 3 symbols are, we'll get some more context about the format. There is one thing I think we can pick up from these spoilers so far, and that is backups. We've seen 2 cards here that are both implying that backups are not only going to be in the set, but going to be relatively playable. Harness and Death wants you to be playing a ton of backups and kind of expects your rival to be playing backups. Healing Spell might not be playable, it is a common, but the ability to add stamina to a backup you have in play isn't something we've seen before. It also has a spell keyword. Both of these have the spell keyword, which is relevant text. And Healing Spell isn't just a dead card. Committing for gaining 2 health is essentially the same as committing for -2 damage, which is an effect that has been playable at times. So these are all again implying that backups are going to be a real thing. So when I saw these, I looked back at some of the existing cards in Attack on Titan, which of course introduced backups to the game, to see if there's anything that's going to kind of open up the strategies for us. And I came across these 2 cards. So Emerging Threats, we aren't really seeing right now because a lot of the backups that aren't shift attacks, so just a straight up backup, aren't all that powerful, aren't seeing a ton of play. I've played a little bit of Titan in the Woods, and I've seen some people playing Grisha's Attack Titan, but they're both pretty fringe. Emerging Threats lets you, at form speed, while it's committed, if you wanted to, flip this to build a backup from your card pool, so you get access to it immediately. Right now, one of the biggest weaknesses with backups is that you have to deploy them, and then they don't do anything until after your rival has had a chance to attack them. And one of the biggest issues with backups is that when your rival attacks them, they are going to get a momentum from it. They're going to get on-hit effects. So backups can be kind of this liability in your deck. Emerging Threats at least gives you the chance to activate a backup's ability once before your rival has the chance to beat it up and get it off the field. So I think that's a very powerful card that is going to go up in value if backups are any good in the new set. And then there's Emerge Victorious. This is a ultra rare from AOT1. It has this really interesting ability where at blitz speed, you sacrifice a backup and then flip cards from the top of your deck till you hit either a Titan backup or a Shift Titan attack, and then you put that into play. Put it in Transformed if it's a Shift attack. All of the backups in Attack on Titan are Titans. So this card wants you to be playing cheap backups that you can put into play, but also expensive things that you can flip into. But since everything's a Titan, you have these odds to put in a cheap backup, sacrifice it, and just flip into another cheap, not very impactful backup. However, it's relatively safe to assume that the backups in Critical Role won't be Titans. So if you can play whatever vaguely playable one-diff backup from Critical Role, then emerge victorious it. If you only have one Shift Titan attack or one big Titan backup in your deck, you're guaranteed to hit it. And what's the best thing you can hit? That's right, it's Colossus Titan attacks. So I have seen 6 cards from Critical Role Heroes of Exandria, as I've said, and I already know the first deck I'm going to be building, and it's this. Emerge victorious, Colossus Titan attacks, and then whatever backup I can get my hands on from the new set. Gonna try to cheat this into play on turn 2. Comes right into play, so after my attack I get to form with this and just blow up my rival's hand. If we want to get really fancy, look at Healing Spell. It's putting 2 stamina onto a backup you have in play. Colossus Titan starts at 10. You have to pay 6 for that big ability, so you only get to use it once unless you give it 2 stamina back, and then you have a chance to use it twice, which is crazy. And even if your opponent manages to kill it, it replaces itself, so you still are up a card. That just seems really good and also just really fun to pull off. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be looking to do in the new format, post-rotation, is really try to abuse some kind of backup deck. And then there is one other really important card rotating when March comes and this comes out. That is my boy, Nato Monoma. I love this character. He's my favorite character in the game. He's not good. Really, really not good. But I played him a lot. I took him to, I think, 2 or 3 regionals, as well as a few local events. A webcam event where I played Monoma is actually how I qualified for Nats last year. So just really special place in my heart as just one of my favorite characters in the game. I'm going to try to bring a Monoma deck to play in side events at Nationals this year. Once he rotates, I don't know, I guess I have to learn how to play retro to keep him alive. But yeah, rip to a legend. If there are any other cards that are rotating out that you feel strongly about that either I missed because you think they're high impact and they should be recognized, or they're just a card that you love, let me know either in the comments or, hey, just DM me on Discord. It's fine. I will happily listen to your feelings about Mina Ashido 2 or whatever. In the meantime, peace out.